Welcome and greetings, my friends. In the history of aviation, there have been moments that made the world stand still. Moments of boldness, mystery, and decisions that changed the course of life for many. In the 1970s, amidst the tensions of the Cold War, a strange hijacking took place. The Japanese Flight 351. This event shocked the world, not just because of the hijacking itself, but because of what happened afterward. A plane carrying 129 people turned into a scene of tension and unexpected events when 9 young men stormed the aircraft, armed with bombs and knives, demanding to escape to North Korea. But the mystery didn't lie in the hijacking itself. It was in the ending that no one could have predicted. How did the hijackers manage to take control of the plane? And how did this incident unfold with such an unexpected conclusion? Stay tuned as we explore the full story of Japan's Flight 351. On March 31, 1970, Japan Airlines Flight 351 took off from Tokyo, heading to Fukuoka. The day seemed ordinary, with passengers on their way to their destinations, unaware that this flight would become part of Japan's aviation history. At that time, air travel was a major means of transportation, but the political tensions gripping Japan made the atmosphere charged. On board the plane was a group of 9 young men, the oldest being 27 years old and the youngest just 16. They were all members of the Japanese Red Army, a radical leftist organization that believed armed revolution was the only solution to overthrow the capitalist Japanese regime. Let's meet the hijackers. The group was led by Takashi Tsuyama, who was 27 years old at the time. The rest of the group included younger members like Kazuya Kimura, aged 18, and Noboru Aoyama, who was just 16. Despite their young ages, these men decided to take on the Japanese government head-on, using the plane as their bargaining chip. The hijackers were convinced that they could achieve their revolutionary goals through this bold operation. Their primary objective? North Korea, which at the time was seen as an ideological ally to revolutionary movements worldwide. Midway through the flight, the hijackers began executing their plan. They were armed with knives and makeshift bombs. They stormed the cockpit and threatened the crew. Under the threat of violence, they declared complete control over the plane and presented their demands to the Japanese government to allow them to fly to North Korea. This was a critical moment. The passengers and crew became hostages in the hands of a small group, but there was a major problem ahead of them. The plane didn't have enough fuel to reach North Korea directly. Facing this dilemma, the Japanese authorities began delicate negotiations with the hijackers. The person who led these negotiations was Kazuhiko Yukawa, a senior security official in the Japanese government known for his crisis management skills. His plan was simple but clever: calm the situation and try to buy time. Under Yukawa's guidance, the plane was allowed to land at Fukuoka Airport to refuel. The purpose of this stop was to delay the hijackers' demands and give time to find alternative solutions. But the hijackers were determined. The negotiations between the two sides lasted for hours, and eventually, the Japanese government agreed to allow the plane to head to North Korea. After refueling, the plane took off again, this time toward North Korea. As the plane neared North Korean airspace, permission was granted to land in Pyongyang. Upon landing, the situation was tense and unclear. How would the North Korean regime receive these young men? Would they be welcomed as heroes? The surprise was that North Korea wasn't as enthusiastic as the hijackers had expected. They weren't greeted as heroes, but were instead met with caution. Not much was revealed about their fate afterward, but we know that some of them were granted asylum and allowed to stay in North Korea, while the fate of others remained uncertain. After their arrival in North Korea, news about the hijackers faded from the world for a time. It's known that Takashi Tsuyama and the rest of the group lived in relative isolation and were occasionally used for propaganda purposes. But the fate of many remains shrouded in mystery, and the North Korean regime didn't speak much about them afterward. For Japan, this incident was a significant lesson. The government was forced to reconsider its approach to dealing with revolutionary groups and to develop mechanisms to confront such crises. The story of Japan Airlines Flight 351 is not just a hijacking, but a tale of youth, ideologies, and how governments handle crises. Questions remain about the fate of the hijackers and the motivations that led these young men to take such a dangerous step. But what's certain is that this incident left its mark on history. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe.